Okay, good afternoon everyone, and wonderful to see you all basking in the sun. And I hope to make it more interesting because we are talking about business books, and the idea everybody thinks, oh, very boring, but we're all very fun people and we're going to make it very fun for you as well. So I'll start with the introduction. I'll start with Rashmi Bansal. Rashmi Bansal is the best-selling author of many books. She's published 7 books, and she is now an entrepreneur and a youth expert. Her books have sold more than 1 million copies, and they've been translated into more than 10 languages. She is also the founder of Bloody Good Book, a platform to discover and e-publish budding authors. And earlier in her career, Rashmi founded Jam, just another magazine which went on to become India's most popular youth magazine. And I know Rashmi personally, and I know we were there at Horsegas Village, and as we sat there, a lot of youth who were doing organic farming connected, and within minutes we had so many people who were working and were entrepreneurs who connected with Rashmi and were so interested in being with her. I know Rashmi is a very down to earth person, and it will be interesting to hear her view on the whole thing, especially because with her first book, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, Rashmi kind of pioneered I would say, business self-help. Rashmi, that is, this is the first time somebody had actually looked at entrepreneurship in the way that Rashmi looked at, and we'll talk about that. Next we have Ravi Subramanian, again award-winning books and a best-selling author of thrillers, and a banker. There is nothing in the world that Ravi doesn't know. So today we will talk about the business books and the business of books with you, Ravi. So and also the fact that Ravi uses a lot of banking in his books. So there is this connect that he makes. One of his books had Bitcoin scandal in the book, combined with a murder, so a thriller and money makes for a potent mixture. Next to him is Vishal Soni. He's the CEO of Vishwakarma Books. They've published a lot of business and management books, and Vishal would really be an expert in terms of publishing these books. So happy to have you all here, and I hope we can make this a good session.
Yep.
Rashmi, can we just start with talking about your first experience in publishing and a little bit about how you got into this thing, because I know that nobody was talking about business self-help till she started it. So how did it all begin for you?
Okay, thank you, Vaishali. I never knew I was writing a business book or a self-help book when I actually wrote Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. This particular book idea came to me from IIM Ahmedabad, where I had earlier been a student, and they have a center for innovation, incubation and entrepreneurship. And a professor there by the name Rakesh Basan suggested to me that why don't we write a book which can talk about the success stories of 25 of our graduates who haven't taken lucrative jobs, but they've started their own companies. Because traditionally students from IIM Ahmedabad basically join foreign banks or big multinational corporations. They're not known for entrepreneurship.
Right.
So this was the background of the book. I was given exactly 7 months to write the book and publish 1,000 copies and give it to them to release at a conference they were holding on the campus. And their idea was just to distribute it to the students, and maybe a couple of people might get inspired to become entrepreneurs. So I really didn't know I was writing a business book or a bestseller book or anything. I just took it up as a project where I would get to meet these 25 amazing people, learn from them and share my experience. And possibly, as John Mackinson said in the morning, it's all about a certain moment in history. I think back in 2008, we didn't have any books which ordinary people could relate to, which were about business. Either you read about Birlas, Tatas and Ambanis, and then you never thought you could become like them, or you read about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Sam Walton and you said, well, they're in America, so it's nothing to do with me. So for the first time, I think this book had stories of people like you and me who are from middle class backgrounds, salaried jobs, but who had taken a leap of faith and followed their dreams. So it just all came together, and possibly my own background that I started writing when I was in college. I was 17 years old. I wanted to become a journalist, But because of my middle class background, I eventually went to IIM, did an MBA, but went back to journalism. So I was a writer at heart, but I had the training of, you know, I knew what is business and I had trained as a journalist. So all the things came together in this one book.
Yes.
So I didn't approach it like maybe a professor would approach it, like you have a lot of business books written by professors, which are very dry, and a lot of people carry the book in their hand, but if you ask them, have you read it? Mostly they haven't read it. So I personally found case studies at IIM Ahmedabad very boring. So I thought, well, there has to be a better way to write a story and still give the business angle to it. But it's ultimately about a human being. So I wrote it more as a human interest story. So of course I put a lot of my heart and soul into it, but ultimately it was really about being the right book at the right place at the right time.
Yes.
So,
and I know that it went practically viral at that time. I know that I heard your name a lot, and I know that the youth connect with Rashmi in a very big way, and she is also connecting with them in the tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns. So that's an excellent network that you have, Rashmi. I think that was the germ of the idea that I kind of blew into this network, right?
yeah, well, originally I would say even Penguin, a lot of publishers like Penguin would have rejected me. They did reject me. I got very bad reviews for my first book and even subsequent books from people who said, you know, they're not in-depth research, you know, you haven't spent 6 years writing the book.
Yeah.
But my objective is different. Like I am trying to share life lessons and lead, you know, lessons in living. I mean, I think what I ended up doing was, I remember this, you know, Panchatantra tales which we read when growing up. You know, the original Panchatantra tales were actually told by a teacher to the 3 princes who didn't like to study books, and, you know, he conveyed ideas and principles and values through those stories. So I think that's what I ended up doing, because as a publisher and editor for Youth Magazine, I constantly had young people coming to me and, you know, wanting career advice, and I would say you have to work hard, you have to believe in yourself, you have to be honest, you have to have a dream, you have to treat people well, and these concepts only actually come across when you read it in a story. So if you read it in a story form, it's much more powerful. So somehow I guess I ended up writing a business self-help book. I think because today everybody in this country is aspiring, wants to go ahead, do something with their life. So it's nice that it's opened up a whole new kind of genre of books where people are now looking for these kind of stories and wanting to buy these books.
Agree with you. I'll move on to Ravi. Ravi, you have to start talking about your first experience, how you published, and how did you think of putting banking and thriller together? And then the book goes on to become like this biggest seller and very iconic in the market as well, and people literally pursue you for your next books, right? So how did it start with you first?
Thank you, thank you, Vaishali. Can you hear me?
Can we check the mic, please?
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Thank you, Vaishali. Yeah, when I actually wrote my first book, If God Was a Banker, my objective was to just write that one single book, and I was just wondering as to what should I write about. And as it turned out to be, I was pursuing a day job as a banker, and I had limited time at my disposal to write.
Right.
And because of that, and plus I was a very lazy guy, so I didn't want to do any research.
Come on.
And because I didn't want to do any research, the choice fell on something which I knew best, which was banking. After a 15, 17 year career in banking at that point in time, the only thing which I knew was banking. And the other point of view which I had was, if I write something about in a book, it has to be credible. And given that you have been a banker for 17 years, if you write about banking, there's a fair bit of credibility in what you write. And that's how I decided on banking as a theme. And then I was starting to wonder whether I should write a thriller, a romance set in a bank. What should I write?
You didn't think of doing a non-fiction?
Because
you know, I'm sorry, but we assume that bankers are like these boring people sitting on the other side and like, ye ho sakta hai, ye nahi ho sakta hai, can you write an application for this please, and then you give it to us. But you are like completely the opposite, I know you.
You know, in fact, Vaishali, when I was contemplating what to write about a bank, whether it was a book on a non-fiction or a fiction, the only thing which crossed my mind was when you look around a bank, okay, from people working on the inside perspective, banking is all about people, relationships, money, sleaze, crime, frauds, investigation.
Yes.
You know, there's so much in it that it's the ideal setting for a thriller, right? You throw in a little bit of creativity in terms of some murders in it and investigation. You have, you know, a fabulous thriller, and that's the way I actually started writing my first book. My first book, the story in my first book, is actually a true story. It's a fictionalized version of
Yes.
a true story.
Yes.
So if you get the names right
Yeah.
of the characters in the book, you could call it a non-fiction.
Yeah. So are your colleagues like, oh, I know this is me. Did you think I was like that?
In fact, that helped the book because a lot of people started picking up the book and reading, saying, "Okay, I recognize this character in the book. I recognize that character in the book. I used to work with Mr. A." So it kind of just helped in the word of mouth. But
Yeah.
but by and large, I started writing banking because that's what I knew best.
Right.
And somewhere down the line, you get stereotyped, right?
Yeah.
When my first book on banking became a success, people started talking about, you know, a new genre which is
Yes.
a banking thriller and a banking story and
Yes.
financial services story. So
Yeah.
I was kind of sucked into it and started writing more and more of it. And
Yeah.
the fact is, if you work in a bank for long enough, my wife has worked in a bank for long enough, our circle of friends is all bankers.
Right.
You have enough stories for the next 25 books.
Yeah.
You know, so you get sucked into it, and that's why my next 7-8 books were all stories which were based in the world of financial services and banking thrillers, till I actually kind of broke out of it with my last book.
Yeah, I know Ravi has just recently written the bestseller she wrote. It's an out and out romance, and he's kind of stepped out of his comfort zone.
Completely
And
stepped out of the comfort zone.
yeah, he's completely stepped out of his comfort zone here. But banking remains your forte, and you're the only one who can twist it around to put all these things together because his plots are incredibly complex, and the story only comes together towards the end. So, but I would like to now move to Vishal, who is a different kind of an expert, and he's coming from the publishing world. And Vishal, tell us your experience of publishing business books and management books, and and tell us about something new that you think that is going to happen, or something that you've worked on which is different in the business world.
Uh, I would just like to give my background first. We come from a colleges. We have our own management and engineering colleges, and I've been teaching for almost 13, 14 years over there to management students, you know, and interacting with thousands of students over there. Every day in day in out, and being MBA, I used to interact with all kind of specialization students, whether it is finance, HR, marketing, and all those things. And I used to always see them reading those time also business books and management self-help book.
Right.
And one of the book was Rashmi Bansal's books also. Plus Bill Gates books are there, or something of that,
Yes.
7 Habits and all those books. So I always used to think of someday I will also start my own business. I always wanted to do a business, but somehow couldn't do it because of some personal reasons. And after interacting and talking and understanding, I always felt that yes, this is what is going to do, because not every person or reader or an entrepreneur gets an opportunity to get training. So what is going to help? So my first book which I read was Learn Marketing in 30 Days. So every day you have to have one mantra and you read. I had picked up that book. So these kind of books, they always fascinate me
Yeah.
in doing that. And when I got this opportunity that Vishal, that you look after publications, that's the thing. So what do you start? So I thought that this is what I feel that will take up, and this has no life in it. The book can be kept with you for
Yeah.
years and years together, and you can follow. It all depends on who has written the concept and all those things.
Yeah.
So that's how we started with this, and there were many books which are doing very well in Marathi. So we also do a lot of translation of business books in Marathi,
Right.
doing like Big Boss, in which all the Maharashtra's business
Right.
tycoons have been covered, or Business Maharaja. I think
Yeah.
that is also another book. So these kind of books are there, read lot. So then we thought of starting with that, and the first book that we launched was of Ganesh Natarajan's book, Through the Corporate Lens. So
Yeah.
how he got Zensar from a loss-making company or whatever to a better company. So that was our first book that we launched, and then the whole thing started. So our main focus is business and self-help, but however we started with other genres
Yeah.
also. So that's how the interest of business, and I feel this is going to do a lot.
Yeah.
The trend that is happening nowadays, in at least in Maharashtra, what I've seen, I've spoken to various exhibitors who exhibit, they sell books in
Right.
various cities of Maharashtra. So their main business is only take books from one city to another city for months. Every month they are in one city, and after talking to them now, okay, are we doing this, good titles based on this? They said yes, this is what we have to do because this
Right.
is what is now coming up. So after cookery books and other kind of self-help books, business books and business self-help books are doing a
Yeah.
lot.
It's
So that's
interesting.
how.
I think Rashmi was making the same observation earlier, right? That a lot of people are aspirational and they want to learn a lot.
Learn.
So whereas she is talking about how they get the inspiration, and you're talking about how these books are like little workshops for people to
Yes.
improve themselves, to get talking about a particular skill that is
So
there.
they learn from these
Yeah.
books and they implement. So they
Yes.
do this trial and error and then they improve themselves. So
Absolutely.
every book they find something which is interesting, which attracts them. This is what I should do in my business.
Yeah.
I feel it that way.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
interactions with authors whom we've published,
Yeah.
always when I have interacted with them, I try to implement their concepts in my publishing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how I take those books personally,
Yes.
and others also, they must be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think we become more reader oriented rather than what a publisher actually needs to put out. But it's interesting that you talk about the various categories of business books, because in my understanding of things, I feel that now we have like two clear categories of publishing, and one is the self help, the soft skills in terms of business that we have, and we have these paperbacks that are there in the market which will cost about 250 bucks or maximum 299, and they sell a lot and the youngsters are buying them. And then the second category that is there, which is like these big business hardbacks that you publish, that you expect that people who are in their career, some years into their career and have some seniority in their business, that they would be buying. So, Rashmi, do you have any perception of that? Do you think that things have changed over a period of time? You want to add something to this?
Um, I always would like my books to reach maximum number of readers. So I've never had a hardback edition of my books. When we first launched Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, it was 125 rupees. That was a 350-page book. And now after 8 years with inflation and other things, like now we have to take into account that online sites always discount your books, so now we sell for 200 or say 225, and I would like to keep it that way because I think price does play a major factor in the reach of a book. So there are some people who publish hardcover books, high price books. There's a small market for those kind of books. There are people who subscribe to Harvard Business Review, so they're always going to be there, but that's a very small and very finite number of people. You can never expand and reach larger number of readers if you go for that strategy. And I visit smaller towns of India, like I've traveled to like maybe 50 cities where you would not expect to find people who've read your book, but they have read my book. So
Yes.
I would like, I think publishers should at least definitely have a paperback version quickly after the first 3 months, and maybe make the ebooks available at cheaper prices, because price does play a lot of role in how far a book reaches. Even people like you and me will think twice before buying a book which is 6.99 or
Yeah.
8.99. Maybe in markets like US it's very normal to buy a book for $20, but it's not the case here. So I feel that price is important, and whoever's story is being written or whoever's put in that effort into the book wants his or her book to reach maximum number of people.
That's true. That's true. Ravi, what do you feel about it? Have you been observing this market?
Yeah, a couple of points which crossed my mind when I was thinking about business books. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Okay.
Yep.
A couple of points crossed my mind when I was thinking about business books. One, the way business books are today, Vaishali,
Yeah.
lunch and mine is more interesting than business books. And I say that very carefully. That's because if you look at the way the books are written today, a lot of business books are written in a very textbookish manner.
Yes.
You know, people like Rashmi and all are an exception rather than a norm. The art of storytelling, which to my mind also encompasses business books, has completely disappeared from business books. You have, you know, business books are written a lot from the perspective of the author rather than the reader, and I think that's where the gap is.
Disconnect is
You know,
coming.
there's a huge disconnect
Yeah.
between serious business books and the readers. People do buy those books because they look good on the bookshelves, they look good behind you, on your cabins, but how many of them read? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. But the fact is that they're written in such a complicated language. They're written
Yeah.
in with so much of analysis, which
Yeah.
to me don't make any difference. You know, I have, if you look at the business books in the past, one of the best business books that I have read in the recent past is is the two books by Prakash Iyer which you guys published.
True. So
Okay.
that was also like the cheap format.
It's 250
yeah.
bucks or 299,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was entirely storytelling, right?
Yes.
What matters for the end result is not how you reach that conclusion, but the conclusion and what are the learnings for it.
Do you
And
think it
if-
has to do with the reader, like the person you are aiming at?
Absolutely. A reader does
Yeah.
not have time to actually go through heavy duty books. He just wants to understand what you're trying to say, because you're competing for his space, for his attention with mobiles, with iPads and probably with time itself.
Yes.
So given that he does not have too much time at his disposal, I think the way we write our business books needs to change dramatically. There is no space, going forward in about 3 to 4 years time, I don't think there will be enough space left for those thick 500-page completely analytical business books in this
Yes.
world.
Yeah. The
The
sense
space for-
I am also getting here is that big hardbacks are things that can be a luxury about reading. You can put them in your bookshelves, but what you really want is that little concept and that book that is really accessible
Absolutely.
for you to get the kind of information that you need. Vishal, I think you would be the right person to take that forward.
After discussing with many authors that we have, many business people or owners, lot of discussion, and we've come through a conclusion that a book has to be somewhere around 150 200 pages. It should be one flight read, and we should finish it off.
Right.
That is what we've been discussing, and we try to stick to those formulas in
Right.
certain books, where we tell authors that you should be very clear and crisp in writing, right? Because it is not because the price matters, it is because of catching the interest of the reader. He should not lose his interest reading and seeing those 500-page or 600-page book, right? So we generally tell them that you should mention the objective, summary and a case study in every chapter,
Yeah.
which will make a reader understand this is what he has to take home from this chapter. That's what we've been doing. So one of our book, No Holy Cows in Business, 9 Principles of Entrepreneurship, is based on that. So there are 9 chapters, and each chapter has a case study, and those points is what they need to understand. So which and every entrepreneur should do.
True.
So if these kinds of books are there, they are doing well, and we are doing well on those. There's one book of Arun Firodia, Innovations on Two Wheels. His Luna and Kinetic, this thing is also doing very well. It's very crisp. But when you read that book about the innovations and all those things, we feel that that's what is needed over here in publishing industry as well.
Yeah.
The first person to start the EMI schemes on two-wheelers. So we should have something of that, not same, but we can think on those terms for our books industry as well. Pricing, they don't matter much for people buying it at 200 will not mind buying it for 250 or all those things.
Yeah.
I think it's more about content.
Content.
I think the content is suffering these days, or probably has become too heavy and not in line with what the audience wants.
No, I don't think there's any one formula. See, one of my favorite business book writers is Michael Lewis. He wrote a book called Liar's Poker about 25 years ago, and even today I tell these MBAs that, see, if you're going to enter if you have these dreams of joining an investment bank, read that book first, because he worked on Wall Street and then he wrote about his experience in such an amazing manner, which is not only informative but it's witty, it's wonderful as a book to read. So I think we just need uh, new authors who are going to come and give us these stories, you know. There is another author called Poe Bronson actually, who's amazing, and there's an author, he wrote a book called Nudist on the Late Night Shift, which was you know, the story of the first .com boom in the US. And the title is about this guy who used to sit nude in his office and work, you know, when everyone had gone home. So these are storytellers, you know, who could combine business with story and, you know, make a larger point through their books also. So, I mean, formulas work to a certain extent, I agree. As a publisher, you have to go for it. But tomorrow, there could be a great book coming out which is about business, which is very interesting. But it's about how it's written, how it's researched.
Yeah.
I think the new trend is that every industrialist wants a book written about himself. You know, because that's the trend. Earlier, they were all naming colleges after themselves. Now they want a book on the shelf about themselves. So, in fact, I get 15 to 20 requests every year, can you write my book? So I've started a company now where we take up 3 to 4 projects, which we think these stories are really good and deserve to be told, and you know, where I employ writers who work under me. But I actually have people of really weird backgrounds coming to me, like a particular guy, when we Googled him, we found he's sitting in jail today because he's been, you know, indicted in some fraud. So actually, even those stories need to be told, but then they have to be told in a different way.
True.
And currently, we're
can't
in
be
the
used
soft
as
side of
inspiration.
business. We actually need a lot of investigative and hard-hitting books also.
Yes.
But in India, people are afraid because, you know, they're going to get sued or they're going to get harassed. You know, the book Polyester Prince is still not available officially in India.
Sure.
So what do? Like, you write the book and then it's going to be banned, or somebody's going to come and set your house on fire, or somebody's going to sue you for 100 crores. So what
That's
do you do?
when you do what Ravi does.
But that's, yeah, so maybe that's the way to do it. So that's going to be, I think, the next thing that's going to, as the market matures, people are going to ask for those kind of books which are going to be more revealing, investigative, hard-hitting. So I think there is always something new people are looking for, and it's going to come in business books as well.
I would just like to add, means we don't stop authors writing big books. We do
no,
look into the contents, but this is what is the market needs.
Yeah, no,
today.
I agree.
The
So,
reading,
yeah.
there is a reading habit which is increasing, but reading shorter. Yesterday, I mean, in last week we had this Saitya Sammelan in Pune, right, where a business of 3 crore just in 3 days happened. They have started a blog where, you know, it's a story, short stories, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs. Bookhangama.com. They have a blog. You can just go through them, and they have almost 3 million followers all across the world. So that's how they are now. It's the trend that is going. But if the content demands that, you know, the pages have to increase, yes, it has to. So we don't restrict any author there, you know, because it's their creativity.
No, absolutely.
We are just
because-
suggesting what people are, the research that we've done. It is not what we are telling what to do.
No, I think more and more interesting things are happening. For instance, you know that Devdutt is combining mythology with business, and he is the expert on a business panel, and it's amazing how he can combine all the qualities of people and whom we know from the myths, the most popular myths, and just pick them up and turn them into these people who are like extremely good entrepreneurs, or people who've gone ahead and done stuff that they want to do, and if they're brave enough to venture into fields that they have been in. So that, I think that connect is happening. But I do agree with Rashmi is that we need to take slightly bolder steps. So we kind of have saturated the market with normal stuff, then we can just do something which is different. Is that what you were trying to say?
I think the market is really, see, for me, one of the really proud moments for me was I got a letter from Maharashtra State Board saying we are using one of your chapters in the English textbook of, you know, 10th standard.
Right.
And this, I have also studied in State Board, and we always only read about historical figures. We never read any contemporary stories. And I thought, well, you know, if at the age of 15, some child in Latur can read a book about an entrepreneur, I mean, that's amazing. That can change that person's life. So we, you know, we have to look at it as such a huge market. I mean, every school and college child in India could possibly be reading these books. But right now, maybe like today I went for in the morning for the session where Ruskin Bond spoke, and everybody has so much love for him because they've read him in school. So
Yeah.
as publishers, we should lobby to get some of our, this happened on its own, I don't know how it happened, and they sent me a letter saying we will give you 200 rupees a year honorarium, which I never got, but I'm very happy that they did it on their own. So if more such initiatives could happen where stories of business, entrepreneurship and soft skills, marketing, what is economics can go to children in schools and colleges
Yeah.
as part of the general syllabus and not like only when they specialize at postgraduate level in MBA or BBA or whatever. I think that there's a huge market. But yeah, you have to work to make it happen. Maybe you have to spend years
Yeah.
trying to get this across to the people who decide the syllabus.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ravi, are you reading a lot of business books? Is there any one book that inspires you? Is there like your life-changing moment?
Couple of them. I come from a very small town background. I was born and brought up in a place called Ludhiana, and last decade in Bombay.
It's
Ludhiana is
not.
no longer a small town, but in
Yes.
those days it used to be a small town. So I read this book called Dare to Dream by
Yes.
Bachi,
Yes.
which was about MS Oberoi, and how the how the entire it actually tracks the entire story of how he his rise to fame and what all he did and how he struggled and how he actually used his intelligence, hard work. So it kind of just inspires you to do a lot more and compete with people in the big bad world out there. I think that's to me an ideal non-fiction book, which combines all the elements of learning, storytelling, and inspiration. I think that's what, to my mind, is one of the best non-fiction books that I have read. I have learned personally a lot from that particular book.
Yeah. And Vishal, do you want to talk about one book?
I used to always read more of technical and books which I used to teach, IT books and all
Okay.
those things. But of later when I started publishing and I started interacting with Mr. Firodia, his book on innovation or two wheels have changed a lot in me. Every
Right.
step, innovations in production, innovations in marketing, innovations in every stage
Yeah.
stage of your business.
Yeah.
I think that has immense. It was really great, interacting with him.
Okay.
So
What about you, Rashmi? Do you think after Michael Lewis's?
So one book which I will never forget is called, well, it's a book by Philip Kotler which we had in, during
Yes.
MBA, and there's one thing I remember from MBA called 4 P's of marketing.
4 P's of marketing.
And it's been, it covers everything that you ever need to know about marketing. So I think that's the best written textbook I have ever read. And among business book authors, I mean, I like Malcolm Gladwell a lot. And I always quote from his book, The Outliers. In all the talks I give in colleges, I tell them there is this 10,000 hour rule. It just in one line tells you everything, that you have to put in 10,000 hours of passion and devotion into any field to become successful. So I think he's also got a real knack for storytelling, but based on credible facts and taking a theme which really is very relevant to the person reading. And I visited New York. I wanted to figure out which cafe he sits in, in Greenwich Village, and stalk him there, but I never
Yeah.
could find out where he goes to. Apparently he
Yeah.
goes to one cafe every day and writes over there, but I couldn't figure
Oh, that's
out
what
which
you were
cafe.
doing when you
No,
went
no, I
to the
wanted to
US.
do that. I thought maybe I might see him and maybe get to meet him, but
Yeah.
I didn't actually do that. So.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about this book that I read ages ago. It was called Fish. If you guys
Yeah,
have read
yeah.
it, it's like this incredibly slim book, and it talks about the pike market. It's about selling fish, and there's this market that they have taken as an example, and how that market actually has the best practices in business. And it's strange because the book is written, it takes from life and goes on to business, but what I got from it was what principles I could use in my life. So strangely for me, it was like that a three-way trajectory of the whole thing. So do you think that if people, and sometimes, since then I've been a big fan of business books, you take me to a workshop, I'm all out for it. And since then I feel that, do you think there are things in business books which people can actually apply onto their real lives, then organize themselves in a way that you can organize your business. That is one point. I don't know, it's a weird point for me to think, but all the same I've thought about it, so I might as well ask.
It's true.
Yeah.
Some
So
of
do
the
you
other
think
book you'll
that,
find
yeah,
something.
sometimes you get this feeling, oh my god, why can't I apply these principles at home?
But isn't that the intent of a business book?
I don't know. I don't know what
I
what
think
is
the
the
intent of a
intention.
business book is to actually give out lessons to people so that they can actually imbibe them in their day-to-day life, or maybe in the in
No,
the
I'm
work
talking
life.
about the fact that they are a separate section. So business is a separate section, and you know the rest of the books are another section. So a person who's buying a regular book might not buy a business book thinking that, oh, it's not of any help, I don't do any business, so it doesn't concern me. I feel that kind of helps.
I mean, if anyone shares the story of their life, you normally learn something from it. So even the story for business always has something that you can learn from it. And like my books, I find even people who are like, say my mother who never reads business books, she has read my books. Her age group people read it, and even they're never going to do business, but they still find there's something in it
Yes.
for them. So
Yeah.
I think business is just a metaphor for life, you know. Like if you apply the principles which make you successful in business to your life,
Yeah.
you may not. Uh, you will be successful in whatever you are trying to do. You're trying to be a good, you know, student. You're trying to maybe you have a hobby you're pursuing, or you're passionate about something. It's all about like the three things I just say. It's passion, purpose, and perseverance. So if it just boils down to that, then you can apply that in some way to your life. And I think stories of most successful business people have these elements.
Yeah. Vishal, do you want to talk about something?
We just published one book that was of P.P. Chhabria, Finolex books. And if you read that, that's very motivational and inspirational for people, you know.
Yeah.
He used to work in a small hotel earning 10 rupees a month, and today he's an owner of a 10,000 crore plus company, Finolex
Yeah.
cables and pipes.
Yeah.
So when you read through his book and his biography, it's really amazing. So
Yeah.
that is there, you can always.
I think what people get from the books is that everyone is ordinary only. Nobody starts out extraordinary. Everyone's worked for it. It's a certain way of thinking, certain way of doing and being, and that you can also take.
So, do you think that if a person was to read a lot of business books, they would actually start, they can actually start running a business? Do you think that business books, because what I see is that business books are based on trend. He was talking about innovation. Now disruption is the word. So how do you think that a person, you know, talking about innovation at one point of time, and then suddenly you're talking about disruption, how does an ordinary person who's reading a business book actually, you know, guide himself through these books? Do you think one can do that, like reading books and then doing business?
You blindly follow something, you're bound to fall. So you have to adapt according to the situation,
Yeah.
according to the need of the hour. So you actually, and the business cycle that you are in, and the stage at which your business cycle is in. So
True.
essentially, I think your learnings depend on situations and the books that you read, and how you actually implement those learnings in your day-to-day life. So
Right.
it's not that if I learn a book on how to actually make an almirah or carpentry, I'll become a great carpenter. No, it doesn't work that way. It actually depends on how you imbibe those skills into your work and then adapt yourself. So, and the skills required change from time to time. So, what is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. A business book that you read that is written today may be relevant today. 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, if you're going to read the same, for example, 10 years down the line, you read a book on the way banking is done today, you're bound to fail. Right? Banking is going through a completely disruptive phase at this point in time. You're bound to fail. So you have to be contemporary in what you read and how you adapt yourself.
True. Rashmi, would you like to say something about that?
I don't know, a lot of people write mails to me saying, I read your book and I quit my job, I started a company, and now I'm learning how to do the business through your books. In the sense that each one gets what he or she needs at that particular time. I mean, it is believed by many people, including I also believe this, that the right information comes to you at the right time through some source. It could be a book, it could be a movie you watch, it could be a friend who told. The books are carriers of certain knowledge, and you access it at a particular time. If you need that information, you get it. What you get and what I get may be totally different.
Completely different, yes.
My job is to just, you know, maybe write the best story possible, checking the facts and making sure that I am, you know, convinced that what I'm doing is worth doing. And after that, the reader can sort of take it in whatever way that is beneficial to him or her.
Yeah, and blindly following a business book is disastrous. To my mind, a book does not tell you the complete story.
Yeah.
The bits and pieces, sometimes critical pieces of a man's story, it leaves out.
Yeah.
So, which may actually, be a make
I
or
think
break.
one has to
So,
apply their own instinct to the whole thing and then kind of understand the book. And Vishal, when you work on that, do you have a look at it? What are the new things coming up? Is
Yeah,
there,
we do look at it.
You try and understand how business works today. Do you think it works? You're publishing one book one day and the next day you've totally changed your concept.
No, 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 no. That's not way that we do. But what I agree is that this is the trend, and it is going to be there.
Yeah.
So
Any
we don't change, today
Yeah.
this, next day that.
Okay, so last question now, we just have another 5 minutes to go. I just wanted to ask, what's the best business book you've read of late, and anything you'd like to leave the audience with, anything you'd like to say? You want to start? Yeah, Vishal, we can start with you.
Finance for non-finance is what I read, because now my boss says that Vishal, because I am not a finance student, I am an IT student. I never understand finance, nor credit, nor debit. But now I've started reading that Anil Lamba's book. It is Finance for Non-Finance, and understanding little bit of finance, because that has now become very
Okay.
important for me.
Yeah,
So that's the off-late book that I'm reading now.
excellent. Ravi, what are you reading?
the two recent books which I read, which I loved, and primarily because of the storytelling, which I just mentioned, was Prakash Iyer's two books. And I
Right.
think if somebody has to learn how to write a business book, that's the way it's got to be written if you want to make an impact on the readers.
Yes.
Well, I really enjoyed reading this book called Business Sutra by Devdutt Patnaik, because I've been following his column in
Yeah.
Economic Times where he talks about, he takes mythology and applies it to current business situations. And I think that Business Sutra is the first book where we've really talked about an Indian way of management thinking, because we've all been schooled in the Western way of management thinking. And he so beautifully explained it, although the book is a little thick and you can't read it at one go. So maybe I feel a simplified version of that book should be published, which can go to a larger audience.
Yes.
Because that is not going to reach every management student in India. But I think that's a wonderful book which I would recommend to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a very sweet note to end the conversation on. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Vishal, Ravi, Rashmi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you
Vaishali.
so
Thank you.
much for all of you. I don't mind if we can have one or two questions. Can we have the mic here?
This is the only mic.
Yeah.
It's too hot over here. Get roasted.
Hi, my name is Vivek Kaul. I'm from Calcutta, and I had a couple of posers for all of you. One is that basically one follows the trends in the market, or what sells, or what is in the market, so to speak. But two areas that I think would be of interest. One is to guide governments on entrepreneurship, because I think governments are no longer in control of the economy as much as they were in a global village. That's one. And a personal question, how do you take up the challenge of challenging existing concepts of management, which have, some of which I think personally, for example, that's an area of my interest, which are not strictly correct, which need to be reworked. Thank you. Rashmi would like.
Nobody can write a book to advise the government, I mean,
think
I write books for people, ordinary people who are my readers. And I think, when I saw Startup India, on this huge stage, I said, well, this journey that began 8 years ago with Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, it's culminated to this stage now. Initially, when I started a company in the year 1995, I didn't even know the word entrepreneurship existed. I was just doing something that I wanted to do. And then slowly we heard these words, these terms. Between 2008 and now, every college in India now has entrepreneurship seminar, or they invite speakers, they have an e-cell. So this idea has percolated, I'm not saying that I'm personally responsible. It's like a wave which is going. And now after 8 years, government of India has woken up and is saying, okay, Startup India, and we're going to give it a big push. So, we never write a book to address the government. I mean, it's not possible. Yeah, it's people on the ground. It's because so many young people have shown interest in entrepreneurship. They've started their own companies. They're doing it despite India being so-called not a very friendly place to start business. They're still doing it. So that's why the government has taken notice. Some of those people might have read some of my books and been inspired. I don't know, or on their own, or because of things happening in Silicon Valley, or because of their own confidence, or whatever. And as far as the second part, I think we leave that to the professors. That's their domain. They have to debate it out and work out and figure out new management theories.
Maybe you should write that book that changes all the management principles. Yes, Ravi, would you like to add? Vishal, would you? Okay.
We can have maybe one more question, but a very brief one and maybe a short answer.
I don't think a short answer would do for this, but anyway. Hi, I'm Arjun. My question is primarily for Mr. Subramanian. So, I've read a lot of your articles about the economy of publishing and how hard it is to survive at the end of the day after incurring all the expenses. So, I want to know your opinion on how you see the evolution of publication in the next few years, and especially in the context of upcoming digital platforms. How do you see it's going to be for writers in the future? Thank you.
You can't ignore digital, okay, that's for sure. So you will have physical books will survive. Okay, the way people read will not change because they have their own romance, their own benefits. But I think you have to embrace change. Digital books will come in. Your e-books are bound to grow. Your books are going to become shorter. People are going to move on to other mediums of communication, other mediums of reading, maybe your blogs, maybe your short stories, maybe your the net is going to drive a lot of communication going forward. You will start reading a book by the chapter. You'll probably buy one chapter, see if you like it, buy the next one, and then if you like it, buy the entire book. So things like those will start coming in. But by and large, I don't see a dramatic change in status quo in the publishing industry over the next 3 years. But the fact is that even though there is change, it's a slow change. Embrace it, otherwise you'll become obsolete.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Vaishali, for hosting this session. Thank you, Rashmi, Ravi, Vishal. It was a wonderful discussion, and we will continue with the program in a minute. This program was sponsored by Westland, so they made it possible that this could happen. Thank you so much.